Joining us, staff writer at The Atlantic and MS Now political analyst Ashley Parker, senior advisor for the Lincoln Project Stuart Stevens, foreign affairs columnist for The Washington Post and MS Now contributor David Ignatius, and senior correspondent for the American Prospect magazine and MS Now columnist Paul Waldman. Paul, we're hanging this on you, my friend. Do you really think he's lost the power of persuasion?
Well, I think his powers of persuasion were always kind of exaggerated. I think the fact that he is so adept at commanding our attention often fools us into thinking that he's actually changing people's minds when he is just kind of grabbing their eyeballs. And, we look back on that time when he said that sort of prophetic thing that he could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose any voters. And that was true to a large extent. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's really convincing people, especially people who are kind of not part of his real hardcore, of anything, that some new policy is really going to be greatly successful or whatever it is. And the Iran Wars is a great example. From the beginning, it was unpopular, and he has done his best to convince everybody that it was really important to do and that it's going great. And no matter how many Truth Social posts he sends out, no matter how many press conferences he does where he repeats those things, people aren't convinced. And that poll from Politico is so striking that even people who consider themselves MAGA are not buying this. That's, I think, the real change. The change is not that the people in the middle don't buy it. He managed to win 2 elections by convincing a lot of people who thought, okay, maybe he'll make the economy better. But the fact that even people who are kind of part of his hardcore aren't buying this thing that is kind of swallowing his presidency, that is truly remarkable. And that's something different now.
So, Stu, talk to me about that. These numbers right here, from May to July, a 13-point swing regarding support for the Iran war. And I think Paul is right to underscore this, that the persuasion really mattered among MAGA voters. They could be persuaded of pretty much anything. And to see numbers like this, it feels like Tucker Carlson was right when he said you're going to cross the Rubicon if you start this war in Iran, and it's not going to go well.
Yeah, well, first, just because I can take this chance, I've read all of David Ignatius' 12 novels. He's an unbelievably great writer, and everybody should read him, so it's a real honor to be with him. Look, I think people know what victory looks like. There's a reason after the Japanese surrendered on the battleship Missouri, we didn't keep bombing Japan, and it was because we had won. And we seem to lose a war in Iran every 60 days. And at a certain point, there is a pain to be paid here economically. What are you going to believe? What you're seeing or what Donald Trump is telling you? And when you put together how many times he said we've won this race, it just sort of becomes like a comedy sketch. So, look, there were 2 essential truths to MAGA. 1, Epstein files. 2, no more foreign wars. No one for Epstein has been prosecuted by this guy who's trying to be attorney general. And we're in another really endless war that keeps expanding. And both of those are really destructive to Trump's base and enthusiasm of his base, which is really the key factor in whether or not they're going to vote.
So one of the things I found so interesting about your Substack, Paul, and I've been lingering on it now for, I think, a week or at least a few days, is that you're comparing Donald Trump to Joe Biden's last few months in office or last year in office when he lost the ability to sell his own agenda, to sell his own accomplishments. And I think that was really underscored by the mention I made of Bill O'Reilly, who said on his broadcast, and I'm not, one to want to bring up Bill O'Reilly as some thought leader here, but the fact that he's saying to Donald Trump, you look tired, you need a break. We're all getting old. I need a break too. Take the month of August off, go golfing, recharge, deal with the war wherever you are, but, get yourself some rest, friend. That was his message. It feels like somebody who could have been talking to Joe Biden at the end of his term, Ashley.
Yes and no. I was struck by that part of Paul's analysis as well. Donald Trump is old. Joe Biden was old, is old still. But people age differently. And Joe Biden was a much worse communicator. And by this, I mean, speaking, showing up in pictures, communicating, meeting voters, literally getting words out of his mouth, he was still a much, much worse, more problematic communicator than Donald Trump is now, even as he continues to age in a fairly visible way in front of us. So that part I disagree with slightly. But I think the real commonality here is that one additional challenge Joe Biden had that Donald Trump is also facing of communicating their message and agenda are the facts. And they both had really challenging economies in the sense that voters viscerally felt how tight things were in their checking account at the end of the month. They felt rising interest rates. They felt inflation. They felt pain at the pump. And Joe Biden actually had a number of, technically good economic indicators, but that's not what people felt. And so he couldn't communicate a message. And one of the things that's most challenging for Donald Trump, just to take the Iran war, is yes, he promised no new foreign wars, to end all forever wars, but it has become a double problem because this war to voters means the economic pain that he also promised would no longer exist. And Donald Trump can create his own reality on a lot of things. I believe he can still create his own reality on a certain number of things, but you can't do it on the economy because people know what they feel.
Yeah, a bit of a hoisted on his own petard scenario. Let me put up on the screen the number of MAGA voters who say this war is to blame for rising gas prices. We put it up a second ago, but it's worth emphasizing. I think it's 57%. They're the ones, again, that love Donald Trump most, blaming him for money coming out of their pocket, blaming the war for money coming out of their pocket. David, is it going to get any better soon? Is there a magic solution to the Strait of Hormuz?
There's no magic solution. Trump has run out of good diplomatic options. He's, I think, wants to get out of this war. He's signaled that now for a month, but Iran really isn't letting him. They did violate what he thought were the terms of the memorandum of understanding. That's now basically a dead letter. He's threatening to escalate this latest claim that he's going to bomb a infrastructure target every day that Iran continues attacking shipping. It's a big threat, but it just takes him deeper down a road that I don't think he wants to be on. Talking today to a European diplomat, he made clear that Europe does not want to help Trump out of this mess. They feel he made a mistake. European aid and some sort of international plan to reopen the Strait of Hormuz would be helpful, but Trump doesn't seem interested in soliciting it, and the Europeans wouldn't offer it. So it's a militarily and diplomatically difficult, and politically at home, it's poison. So presidents carry heavy burdens when they begin wars. You can just see Trump. That burden is visible. Just know one thing: even with all the difficulties that Trump has in his foreign policy, I was struck yesterday by his ability to do something new and potentially important in hosting the president of Lebanon and saying to him, "We'll help you take your country back from Hezbollah by supporting your military and helping you regain sovereignty." So he's not entirely out of the game, but he doesn't have any good options that I can see right now on Iran.
No, he's backed into a corner on Iran. Let me just play Speaker Mike Johnson, and at the end of that, we can discuss why it's notable.
I know that this administration is working around the clock to resolve that in a way so that we don't suffer any more troop losses. This is a great tragedy. It shouldn't happen. But it is a very important objective that I believe we've achieved to ensure that the largest sponsor of state of terrorism does not have a nuclear weapon. That would be a disaster for everybody, and everybody around the world understands that. Now we got to wrap it up.
So wrap it up. So Mike Johnson is perhaps one of the president's greatest translators, the greatest pitchmen, the greatest, normalizers for the president's actions and words. But I do think it's notable, David, that he is saying, wrap it up. It is a small deviation, but it is a deviation.
So you can't wrap this up while the Strait of Hormuz remains contested, while shipping cannot easily transit the strait. It's not possible. And Trump understands that. His military, I'm sure, is counseling him, Mr. President, you can't walk away from this right now. Again, I just would underline, he doesn't have good options. The mediation efforts that he's tried so far have not been successful. It's very, very hard for me to predict what's ahead. If we see a big spike, which we haven't yet, in oil prices, or a big fall in financial markets, that will, I think, pressure him to just maybe walk away and declare it's over. But for now, I don't see an easy way out.
All right, so Paul, because Ashley disagreed with you a little bit on the persuasive power that Donald Trump still has, I'd like you to respond.
Well, I think that he and Biden are different kinds of people. And as Ashley said, they aged in different ways. But there was this phenomenon in the last year of Biden's term when every time he would get out in public, I think Democrats were always kind of on the edge of their seats saying, please don't screw this up. Please don't screw this up. And you now see something similar with Trump, not necessarily because he's going to, stumble over his words or look old when he walks, but because he is going to say things that just don't help them. And we see reporting just piling up about Republicans who are so worried about the midterms, saying that Trump is just not helping them. He is not talking about the issues that they want to talk about. He's obsessed with voter fraud in a way that is just not helping them at all. And I think, the Iran thing goes to his ability to, make good decisions. I mean, he got the Republican nomination in 2016 in no small part because he perceived that the whole country was kind of living through this trauma of what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, and his whole party was implicated in it. And he could distinguish himself by saying it was a terrible idea from the beginning. And now he built himself a trap and then jumped into it and keeps saying that if we just do more bombing and get tougher, then somehow, we're going to find our way out. And as we're seeing, even his own voters don't agree with that. And the people in his own party who were so worried about their own survival this November, they want this to be over too.